Old man Woody likes the crooked cock.
Sports.
Here's something, even though I'm the bluest guy here, aside from Steve, and I bet I disagree on. Trump signed an executive order saying that you can no longer look at race during college admissions, if I understand the order right. And I think I agree with Trump in there. This should just be merit-based. And part of it is this. You've mentioned, like redlining and, historical economical deficiencies. The people applying to college next were born in 2001. Right, 2001. That's like recent history to me. 2001. I was working at Cisco. I think I was like that. That to me is not the olden days when these kids were born. This reality of segregation and slavery. They are so far removed from that time when the planet was still black and white. It doesn't. Merit-based admissions just seem fair to me.
Sure. So the thing that is very intangible about that kind of stuff is that one thing that we don't I'm gonna dip into the topic of privilege here, which is very uncomfortable for a lot of people, I understand. But one thing that we don't count on is all of the advantages that we have being born into certain types of families. So if you are somebody that is born into a family with a mom and a dad, where the mom can stay home and work, and both parents are college educated, if you just run like a Bayesian analysis on this type of person, the chances that they will be successful and college educated grows dramatically versus single parent households where only some colleges completed, where no college is completed, where no high school is completed, based on the income of the parents. You have all of these things that can predict future success of a person without even fucking knowing anything about them, right? Show me two people, show me one of them born to a middle-class family with a stay-at-home mom and whose earnings are in the six-figure range versus another one with a single crack mom who has earnings in the welfare range, who is living off of EBT, right? I can give you outcomes. I can be very predictive of the types of people that will be created in these environments. And the problem is
them into college, you're setting them up for failure in a way. There's a reason that if you're trying to get into Yale, for example, and they're all right, this student's black, they have a test score that if they were white or Asian, we would never even consider them, but they're black and we need to let them in. You're letting someone in who's not prepared for that elite university, and they fail disproportionately because of that. Because
and there are
not
arguments
prepared for that.
Sure,
yeah, and there are arguments
on top
to be
of that,
made for those. Yeah,
you're making this argument as it's socioeconomic, and I oh my god, this sounds so racist to say it, but they've done when they adopt a person and put them in these families that would set them up for success, they don't do as well as their natural born children, right? So some of this is just merit based. It's not just a socioeconomic disadvantage.
Oh man, we got a race realist argument. You're referring to the Minnesota Twin studies there?
I read it in the bell curve. I don't know what. I forget where he came from.
The bell curve. Charles Murray. Oh, I'm very familiar with a lot of these things.
Yeah, it just seems like merit based is fair, right?
Yeah. I guess at the end of the day, what I would say is that the thing that feels shitty is that if you go back to the 50s and 60s, people weren't targeting socioeconomically disadvantaged groups of people. People were targeting black people. And even to today, now that we have all these black people in the kind of most fucked ways, now when we have things that aren't racist, like the war on drugs, which isn't racist, but it kind of is.
You're literally talking about these kids' grandparents, right? I've got a girl.
It's not that long ago.
Yeah, I've got a girl who's in college now, right? Not applying to college next year, but going in to be a sophomore. And I was born in '73, and you're talking about the 50s, right? That's ages ago. At some point we get to make this stuff merit based.
Sure, but I mean, if I take any Kennedy that's born in the United States, do you think that these people all of them are super overachievers and they're working really hard all the time? Or do you think a lot of these guys have been born into families that have been rich for generations?
Weren't you fussing about individual examples just 10 minutes ago?
Well, I could point to economic data that shows that people. So we divide wealth into quintiles, right? People that are born into the top quintile of wealth have a 70% chance of remaining there throughout their entire life.
People born into the bottom quintile, to NBA stars have a really good chance of being good at basketball, right? Both of Michael Jordan's kids played Division I ball.
And this is also assuming those quintiles don't move around. You're not statically stuck in that third quintile. A lot of it has to do with age and career progression. It's people tend to go up those. Maybe you're not going to make it to that top one or even the second one, but you are more likely to ratchet that up. So if you broke those down by age, like you're going to see a lot more young people in those lower income areas.
Well, not if you're born into an upper income area. That's the thing.
But like,
it's called in economics. It's called stickiness at the ends, right? It's a super well observed phenomenon in the U.S. that if you're born really well off, you tend to be really well off. If you're born really fucked off, you tend to be kind of fucked. People can move, and it does happen, and there is some economic mobility in the U.S. It's not quite as good as other Western nations, but the thing is that just like if your grandparents were super fucked, there's a decent chance that your parents were pretty fucked, which means there's an okay chance that you're going to be kind of fucked. Like you can work your way out of it, but the amount of work that you have to do compared to another person born into like a much better circumstance, it just feels kind of shitty for those people to talk down on the other people. Like, not to sound like really rude or mean or anything, but like if you were born into a family that was like doing well, is like a middle class family, and you got like your bachelor's degree and now you have like out of college a 60, 70,000 year job, you didn't really do much. Like you just kind of showed up every day to your life and like you did it. But I mean, you kind of did what was expected of you. But then to turn around and look at somebody that was born to a single parent household, whose mom like was never home, who was working 3 jobs, who barely graduated high school, and then to look at that person and go, well, why didn't you graduate college like I did? It's like, motherfucker, you didn't do anything exceptional. I love this notion that
underachieving parents have so much less time, right? Like, oh, your father was an attorney. He probably just fucked off all the time and stayed home and played with you as a child, taught you how to play baseball. You know, but your mom, she worked a cash register, so she most likely was so busy she could have never helped you with your homework.
Well, what I mean is like you have to acknowledge that like having a stay-at-home mom is a massive advantage. With the fact that you can go home and have a parent there that can help you with homework, that's invested in your success, that cares about you, that is monumentally helpful to a lot of children versus being in a single parent household where the parent just doesn't really have time to spend with you.
Not having a father in the home is one of the largest predictors for
of
like
being a criminal,
violence, acting out, being a criminal, not having a positive real male role model in the family.
But does that mean that you take a kid who followed the straight and narrow and not give him the opportunity that the other fucked one did?
I was just saying that's true. It is badly impactful, but how does that tie to, well, now your test scores are lower, so sorry, Mr. Asian guy, you get the boot because we got to let this guy in who is probably not going to succeed because we got to hit our quotas. You know, like when this guy could go to a university that is more apt to fit his needs and actually succeed.
Sure. And I think to be fair, like, I don't know if I feel comfortable, like, literally putting in a black person over a white person. Like, when I think of, like, affirmative action programs, like, more beneficial ones, I think, are, like, there are groups of people that will come together and raise money for a cause. So maybe you make, like, a black scholarship program or something. So, like, if a black person gets that scholarship, it's fine. But if you would say something like, well, no affirmative action, like, those people wouldn't raise that money. So it's not like a white person is necessarily losing out just because, you know, there were these types of programs that existed in the first place.
Well, by definition, someone's losing out. There are a limited number of spots.
Well, because they wouldn't. Well, is that true in like maybe like an Ivy League schools?
He was talking about raising money, not spots. Yeah, like a scholarship. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if a black organization wants to start a black scholarship fund, fine, go for it.
That feels shitty to me. Like the litmus test I always apply to these things is if you flip it and say, hey, we're going to raise money for white people and only white people can benefit from this. That feels shitty too. Like it just doesn't feel. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do it because I think it even ties into like free speech and liberty and such. Like you should be able to.
If it's a private organization that's like about black needs or whatever, they have the right to do that. That's their money. They can give it to someone to help.
I agree that it's the right to do it. I also agree that it kind of feels shitty to do anything based on race. I don't like that. But
I agree with you.
Yeah. But, it just feels shitty to have like generations and generations of like wealth built up by white people, like literally through racial policies against black people. And then when we make that illegal, now we're like, whoa, hold on. Like we don't want to do anything race-based now. It's like, okay, well, fuck, we kind of got fucked a long time ago in a lot of ways.
A long time ago, there was some fucking. There's no doubt about
generations,
that. But we're talking about like the 50s. Yeah.
2 generations.
2 generations is the difference between me and my grandfather. My grandfather came off a boat. He was poor. My grandmother also came off the boat. They beat the children. My grandfather ran away. My grandmother stayed around, worked a cash register at JCPenney. When my grandfather ran away, my father said, great, this is an improvement on our situation. And my father made a lot out of himself. He did fantastic. I don't have that same story to tell because I was raised in a good... Well, like,
a lot of behaviors are a lot of your behaviors are so predicted. Like even I think your political affiliation, isn't that like heritable to like 80%, like 0.8 heritability, like a political affiliation?
Not in my family, but it may be. I wouldn't be sure.
So like there's just so much that passes from your parents that I think people kind of take for granted that like, I don't know. It's
I ended on that note. I love the wordplay.
That was the best shit I've ever heard.